What Once Was Mine, Chapter 5, Mother Gothel. The assortment of good wives, doctors, priests, and charlatans to choose from was much smaller this time because of the need for actual expertise on the matter, not just hearsay. When it came to magic, there was a very small but very significant difference between belief and knowledge. The average sort of hedge practitioner, the kind who silently wished for powers like the sundrop flower bestowed, but in reality concocted useless life filters for starry-eyed teens while dispensing reasonably good advice, just wouldn't do this time. Nor would those who read the fates in cards, or those who could do tricks for kings either. Necromancers were right out. It was down to a very slim selection indeed when, one dark evening, a cloaked, dark-haired woman appeared like a fairy tale in the castle door. The guards unlocked and opened it, and she wasn't even paying attention. She was admiring the shadow of her, admittedly comely, body, cast large by the flames of the torches on the wall. She posed and tossed her head like a much younger maiden. "Sorry, my little hut has absolutely terrible light," she said with a winning smile. "Just tallow candles and sunshine to admire my girlish figure." Treshberg was not drawn in by her smile, nor her beautiful black hair, nor her large eyes. Yet he also did not have the sadly common prejudices of a peasant. He didn't care if she was from the Rami or the Judice or the mountains or someplace south. There was just something off about her. False. Still, he ushered her in like all the others. She looked around at the tapestries, the suits of armor, the resident noble's finery, with interested eyes, but a strange little smirk on her face, as if she thought it was all delightful yet largely unimportant. How silly for the inhabitants to treasure such things. "Your Majesty," the guard announced. "Mother Gothel." "Sister Gothel, really," she corrected immediately. "Not that I don't earn to be a mother to my own little babe someday, but mother just sounds so old, doesn't it?" She remembered to curtsy only at the very last minute. The king sat in his commodious, not throne room. Ariana was perched drawn and pale on a settee with one hand on the bassinet. Nanabeth stood close by, one hand on her queen's shoulder. The priest and the doctor lurked in the shadows. "I'm so delighted the queen pulled through her ailments and delivered such a beautiful baby girl," Gothel said, standing on her tiptoes to peep at the baby. "After the tragedy of not finding the sundrop flower." "But we did," Frederick said, confused. So much so that he forgot the formal speech he had already recited a dozen times. "We found the flower, plucked it, and made the tea, and the queen drank it, and this is the cause of the problem, we believe." What, your Majesty?" the woman asked, also confused. "The sundrop flower can't have been picked. I feel like there would have been a sign or a pertinent omen. I would have read it in the tea leaves." "A royal celebration and minstrels proclaiming the magic of a healthy birth wasn't enough?" Nanabeth asked archly. Ignoring her, Gothel went over to the baby. She gazed at the princess with greater interest and intrigue than before. "Her hair," she said slowly. "It's silver, not golden, not like one would expect if she had drunken the essence of a golden petals, but... And you're sure it was the sundrop flower?" "Yes, unless there's another shining blossom out there somewhere," Signor Alzi interrupted impatiently. Gothel remained silent. "Here's the situation," King Frederick pressed on. This was the hardest part of the ordeal, recounting again and again the story of what happened. Ariana turned and buried her head in Bess's aprons like a child. The old woman put her arms around the queen like a mother. Gothel said nothing, but her large eyes grew even wider as the king told the truth about Rapunzel and the death of Letty. When it was over, Gothel studied the baby a moment silently before she spoke. "Such power," she murmured. Her eyes narrowed in thought. "In the right or wrong hands, some would pay for such a pretty little weapon, not lock her away." "What did she just say?" Ariana demanded. Gothel turned to face the king, a grim look on her face. "Sire, you are correct to be concerned. The power of the heavens is now terribly consecrated in the heart of such a cutie-whittle little baby. She needs to be protected, but also kept safe from those who would use her for ill. Though it is a dangerous undertaking, I would be honored to take on such a burden as my own and lift the responsibility from your Majesty's shoulders." "Rapunzel isn't a burden," Ariana said, fingers tightening on the bassinet. "She's an infant. She isn't a responsibility. She's a child." "Your Majesty, one can tell you're an excited new mother with all the resources of an entire kingdom at your disposal," Gothel said with a curtsy and a wink at Nana Bess. "All infants and children are both responsibilities and burdens. It is why those of us who practice the arts often don't have time for them." Bess didn't disagree, but shifted uncomfortably at the familiar tone the good wife took with her mistress. "So, you have never cared for a child before," King Frederick said. "Oh, don't let these girlish looks deceive you," Gothel said, laughing and spinning coquettishly. "I am far older than I look, and I have lived a long, hard life before now. My experiences are too many to list." "That's not answering the question," Signor Alzey pointed out. "Here," Gothel said in answer, turning to the baby and leaning over. She stroked Rapunzel on the cheek and murmured soft words, and then lifted her up. Everyone in the room gasped. But the baby, first woken and surprised by the stranger, immediately saw she was no danger. She tried to lift her head off Gothel's shoulders to get a look around. When she saw her mother, she relaxed, snuggling back down. "You see now," Gothel cooed quietly, bouncing the baby a little. "I'm quite good with little ones, and my knowledge of things like the sundrop flower will allow me to raise her safely, away from people, where she can hurt no one." "Until she grows out of it," Ariana said, carefully repeating what Frederick had said before, "as exact and superstitious as a child afraid of being cheated out of a promise. Or she is old enough to control herself." "Ah, Your Majesty, I'm afraid where this sort of thing is involved, growing out of it isn't a question," Gothel said, making her lips purse sadly. "Her powers will grow and become even more, powerful, until she is deadly just to be near. You won't even have to be touching her." "No!" Ariana cried, standing up, clenching her fists. "Afraid so," Gothel said with a sigh. "Honestly, it is a ridiculously dangerous thing for me to take on. You hear about it all the time in the circles I travel in. Someone takes on a cursed foundling, then dies at its hands. I probably wouldn't even bother unless I thought it would be compensated enough for my family to be taken care of in the probable event of my accidental death." "Of course," the king said, missing Tresberg's poor attempt to not roll his eyes. "We will provide for you, and your family, in the event of your—" "Do you really think she would do that?" "No," Ariana whispered, gazing at Rapunzel, who looked no more dangerous than any sleeping babe. "Where do you live, Gothel?" the king asked, trying to sound businesslike, but his eyes were bright with tears. "Oh, you know, a little hut in the Deber River Valley," Gothel said carelessly. "Maybe not the best place for such a dangerous, pretty little princess, but I know just the spot. A hidden place in a beautiful dell, full of wildflowers and soft grasses. An ancient place, a ruined fort, with the sort of, keep one might need to protect the darling." "Where is it?" Tresberg demanded. "Maybe it's best not to tell. Kidnappings and ransom are common with the little ladies of the court, aren't they? And what if people revolt and want to destroy her?" "What if I want to see her?" Ariana said, standing up. "I want to see her grow up, even if I can't be with her." "We could, of course, arrange visits," Gothel said soothingly. "But maybe for her and your peace of mind, without her even knowing it. At least at first. I'll let you in and you can gaze on her at your heart's delight." "You should leave tonight," Frederick declared. "Alzey, fetch the treasurer. We must make sure our child lacks for nothing and provide her with a lifestyle we cannot oversee ourselves." "You are too kind, Your Majesty," Gothel said, curtsying with the baby still on her shoulder. "Tonight," Ariana said, with no tears, for they had already been used up. A layette was quickly assembled and packed. Blankets and gowns and snuggly hats and the softest diapers were folded into trunks. A handsome, gentle donkey was saddled up with a basket for a baby and a cart for the provisions, and gold. Although the guards tried to stop her, Queen Ariana would not be held back from giving her princess a final kiss. "We are doing the right thing," Frederick said, holding her shoulders. For the kingdom, maybe, Ariana said. Maybe for her own safety, but not for my baby. Do not for a moment fool yourself into thinking that. And so Mother Gothel set out like a thief in the night, the princess tucked in safely for the journey. The next day the story was made public of the sudden and terrible death of Rapunzel, and the brave maid who had tried to save her from a venomous serpent. All who had actually been in the room at the time were sworn to secrecy. The entire kingdom mourned for a fortnight, and the ceremonies ended with the release of the sky lanterns as a tribute to the poor deceased princess. The king declared that they would do it every year to mark the anniversary of her death. Life gradually returned to normal for the kingdom, but not for its king and queen, who were still kind and fair, but now sad and prone to silence.